Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons, and love are told. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned, because today's story is one that will leave you thinking long after it ends. I was 24 when I landed my first real job at a small but respectable accounting firm. My name is Marissa, and I thought graduating college with my degree in accounting meant I was finally free to build a life for myself. I had student loans, of course, but I also had a fire in me to climb out of debt, travel the world, and maybe one day own a little condo with a balcony where I could drink coffee in the mornings. What I didn't realize was that my family would soon see my career not as my achievement, but as their opportunity. At first, it was my mom, Caroline, who came to me crying on the phone one night. She said my dad, Victor, had lost his warehouse job, and that she'd just been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. She talked about how the bills were piling up, how they were behind on rent, and how my younger sister, Lena, still needed money for school expenses. I remember sitting in my apartment that night with my laptop still open, my dinner untouched, listening to her sobs echo through the line. Something in me cracked. I couldn't bear the thought of my family being thrown out on the street, so I promised to send $800 to cover their rent. I told myself it was temporary, just 1 month. But that 1 month stretched into 2, then 3. Soon I wasn't just covering rent. I was sending money for utilities, groceries, car insurance, and Lena's school fees. The needs never stopped coming. Every week seemed to bring a new emergency. Their car broke down, the electricity was about to be cut, the water bill doubled, Lena needed a new laptop. I took on extra shifts at work, said yes to every overtime opportunity, and before I knew it, I was living paycheck to paycheck while supporting 3 other people. My boss noticed my dedication and offered me more responsibility, which came with small promotions and raises. But instead of improving my own life, the extra money just disappeared into my family's hands. I told myself I was being a good daughter, a responsible sister. I thought, if I don't do this, who else will? My mom's voice always lingered in my head, Marissa. You're our hope. Without you, we're finished. Year after year, I delayed my own dreams. I wanted to buy a car, but I kept using public transportation because Mom said their insurance was overdue. I wanted to save for a down payment on a condo, but Dad said the roof at their house was leaking and needed urgent repairs. I wanted to take a trip to Greece with my friend Hannah, who had been begging me for years, but Lena suddenly needed money for a school trip that cost more than my rent. By the time I turned 30, I had given them over $100,000. I tracked it once late at night, after Hannah asked me how much I thought I'd spent over the years. I sat down with my banking app and scrolled through endless transfers, Zelle receipts, and Venmo notes that all said the same things: rent, light bill, insurance, groceries. My stomach sank as the numbers added up. 6 figures of my hard-earned money are gone. And the strangest part was how their gratitude slowly disappeared. In the beginning, Mom would call and cry, thanking me over and over. Dad would say things like, "You saved us, sweetheart." But as the years passed, their tone changed. They stopped thanking me and started treating the money as if it were their right. If I sent funds a day late, Mom would text me angrily, "Where's the rent? We're waiting." If I questioned a request, Dad would guilt me. "So you'd rather see us homeless?" Even Lena, who had been just a teenager when it all started, grew cold. She used to message me about her classes, her friends, and little things she was excited about. But once she realized I was the one footing her bills, her messages turned into lists of things she needed: gas money, books, new clothes. At one point, she even asked me to help pay for her spring break trip, and when I said I couldn't afford it, she stopped talking to me for 2 months. The worst was my 30th birthday. I had secretly hoped they would surprise me, maybe with a card or a cake, or even just a phone call. Instead, I sat alone in my apartment as my phone stayed silent all day. No calls, no texts, no happy birthday. The only notification I got was a message from Mom reminding me that the utility bill was due. That night, as I scrolled through Instagram, I saw photos of my family, my mom, Dad, and Lena all smiling on a trip to Disney World. They had matching shirts, wide grins, and captions like "Family time is the best time." I stared at those pictures until my eyes blurred with tears. I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even known about the trip. They were laughing in the Florida sun while I sat in my small apartment, eating instant noodles because I couldn't afford groceries after covering their expenses. I felt like someone had stabbed me. I had given up so much of my life for them, and they couldn't even bother to include me. It was Hannah who finally broke through my denial. One night, we sat in a cafe near my office, and I told her everything. She listened quietly, then leaned across the table and said, "Marissa, they're using you. This isn't love, it's financial abuse." I wanted to argue, but the words lodged in my throat. Deep down, I knew she was right. But still, I couldn't let go. Every time I thought about pulling back, I imagined my parents losing their home or Lena dropping out of school. The guilt was unbearable. So I kept paying, even as my own life grew smaller and smaller, even as my dreams slipped further away. Until one afternoon, everything began to crack. I bumped into Lena at the mall. She was carrying a shiny designer purse, the kind that cost more than 2 months of my rent. And when we walked out to the parking lot together, I watched her unlock a brand new car with a key fob. My heart stopped. I stood there, speechless, while she smiled and said, "Isn't it cute? I just got it last week." That was the moment the ground shifted under me. I realized something was very, very wrong. I drove home from the mall that day with my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Lena's designer purse glared at me from my memory, its gold logo shimmering like a cruel joke. The new car's glossy paint burned into my mind. For 7 years I had been emptying my pockets, and somehow the people I thought I was saving were living better than me. My stomach twisted with nausea. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing my mom's voice in my head, "Marissa, we're struggling. We don't know how we'll survive without you." Those words had haunted me for years, but now they clashed with the image of Lena twirling her new purse. Something didn't add up. The next evening I made a decision. I called my Uncle Martin. He wasn't always close to me, but he had a sharp tongue and never sugarcoated the truth. If anyone knew what was really happening, it was him. I invited him to meet me at a quiet diner downtown. He slid into the booth across from me, raising an eyebrow. "You look like hell," he said bluntly, sipping his coffee. I leaned forward, my voice trembling. "Uncle Martin, I need you to be honest with me. What's going on with my parents? With Lena? I've been sending them money for years, tens of thousands, and today I saw Lena with a new car. What aren't they telling me?" He didn't answer at first. His eyes darted to the window, then back to me. Finally, he sighed and muttered, "I wondered when you'd figure it out." My heart pounded. "Figure out what?" "Your dad's been working for years," he said flatly. 3 years, maybe more. Warehouse job, steady hours. Your mom's been working part-time for at least 2 years now. They're not broke, Marissa. They've just been using you because it was easier than being responsible. I froze, his words slicing through me like glass. "That can't be true," Mom said. "Your mom lies to you," he interrupted sharply. "I've told her it's wrong, but she waves me off. Say you're single, you don't have kids, and you make good money. She thinks you owe them. They even talked about asking you to pitch in for a timeshare in Florida. A damn timeshare." The diner around me blurred. The waitress refilled my water, but I barely noticed. My own family had been lying to me for years. The money I bled for, the sacrifices I made, the dreams I shelved, all for nothing. Worse than nothing. I'd been tricked. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Because you wouldn't have believed me," he said, his voice low. "You needed to see it for yourself." He paused, then added, "I'm sorry, kid. They don't deserve you." I went home that night with rage bubbling inside me. Every transfer I had made, every late night I had worked, every dream I had shelved, it all replayed in my head. I felt like a fool. Worse, I felt disposable. The next week, I booked an appointment with a therapist. Hannah had given me the idea, and though I'd resisted at first, I realized I couldn't claw my way out of this pit alone. Sitting in that softly lit office, I poured out everything. The years of payments, the guilt, the lies, the Disney trip, Lena's purse, Uncle Martin's confession. My therapist listened, then leaned forward with a seriousness that made me shiver. "Marissa, what you've been experiencing is financial abuse," she said. "They've manipulated you into believing their survival depends on you. That's not love. That's exploitation." Her words cracked something open inside me. I left the office shaking, but for the first time in years, I felt a spark of clarity. I crafted an email to my family. I wrote that I would be reducing my financial support gradually over the next 6 months, giving them time to adjust. I explained that I needed to prioritize my own future, my savings, my health, and my happiness. My hands shook as I typed, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I pressed send, then sat in silence, waiting for the explosion. It came the next morning in the form of a text message. From my mom. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all." Just like that. "No, we love you. No, let's talk about this." Just a cold dismissal. I stared at the screen, my chest caving in. I wanted to scream, to call, to demand answers. Instead, I sat frozen as the second notification came through. I'd been blocked. On everything: Facebook, Instagram, even WhatsApp. My own family had cut me off, as if I were nothing more than an ATM that had run dry. The grief was unbearable. For days, I stumbled through life like a ghost, going to work, coming home, collapsing into bed. Hannah came over with takeout and sat beside me as I cried until my face ached. Uncle Martin called once to check in, but even he didn't know how to comfort me. The silence from my family was a wound that wouldn't close. Yet slowly, through the cracks of that pain, something else began to grow. Anger, yes, but also freedom. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't wiring money every week. My paychecks stayed in my account. My evenings were mine again. It terrified me, but it also lit a spark deep inside. I didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of my comeback. The weeks after that text felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with no safety net beneath me. My family was gone, not by death, not by distance, but by their own choice to erase me from their lives. I kept rereading my mother's words. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore at all." And each time they felt colder, more brutal. Yet, when the grief wave settled, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. I was free. For the first time since 24, my money, my time, and my choices belonged solely to me. The first paycheck that stayed in my account felt unreal. I opened my banking app and stared at the balance, half expecting a notification from Mom asking where her share was. But the silence held. With trembling hands, I transferred money into a savings account I'd opened years ago but never had the chance to grow. That simple act felt like planting a seed in soil that had been dry for too long. I started small. I booked a pottery class at a studio 5 blocks from my apartment. The first evening, I sat among strangers, clay sticking to my fingers, and laughed when my bowl collapsed in on itself. It was messy and imperfect, but it was mine. No guilt, no strings attached. Just me reclaiming joy. I bought books I had put off for years, allowed myself little luxuries like fresh flowers for my table, and walked home with a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in forever. By spring, I did something I had always dreamed of. I bought a condo. It wasn't huge, but it had 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and a balcony that overlooked the city skyline. The first morning I drank coffee out there, the sun rising between the buildings, I cried. Not out of sadness this time, but because I finally felt like I was standing on ground that was truly mine. Travel was next. I booked a ticket to Italy, a trip I had been fantasizing about since college. I stood under the Colosseum, marveled at Michelangelo's David, and ate pasta in little restaurants where no one knew my name. I sent Hannah postcards with scribbled notes. Living, finally living. Each memory became proof that life existed outside the cage my family had built around me. Then one afternoon, about a year after the text, my phone rang. I froze when I saw the caller ID, Dad. My stomach twisted, my heart raced, but something inside me told me to answer. His voice was softer than I remembered, almost cautious. "Marissa," he said quietly, we need to talk." Against every instinct screaming at me to hang up, I agreed to meet them. We chose a neutral cafe downtown. When I walked in, I saw the mom, dad, and Lena sitting together. They looked older, wearier. For a moment, I felt a pang of recognition, of missing them. But then the years of pain surged back. Mom spoke first, her voice trembling. "We were wrong, Marissa. We treated you like a bank, not like family. We pushed you away when you tried to stand up for yourself, and it was cruel. We're sorry. Lena wouldn't meet my eyes at first, but when she finally did, her face was red. I was selfish. I thought you'd always be there to pay for everything. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I'm sorry too. I listened, my arms crossed, my heart pounding. I had dreamed of this moment, of them finally acknowledging what they had done. Yet I also knew apologies weren't enough. I appreciate your words, I said slowly. But things can't go back to the way they were. If we're going to rebuild any kind of relationship, there need to be boundaries. Dad leaned forward. What kind of boundaries? I took a deep breath. Honesty. No more lies about jobs or illnesses. Financial responsibility. You handle your own bills. And a repayment plan. I gave you over $100,000 across 7 years. I don't expect it all back, but I do expect an effort. The table went silent. Mom's eyes widened, Dad shifted uncomfortably, and Lena bit her lip. For once, I didn't flinch. I didn't back down. I was calm, steady, resolute. Finally, Dad nodded. You're right. We owe you that. The conversation that followed was uncomfortable, filled with pauses and sighs, but it was real. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the power in the room. Not because I wanted to dominate them, but because I had reclaimed myself. Rebuilding trust was slow. Some weeks I doubted if it was even worth it. But I held firm to my boundaries. I focused on my career, my home, my hobbies, my friendships. I let my family back in little by little, but only on terms that honored my dignity. Looking back now, I realized the revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about showing them and myself that I could rise from the ashes of their betrayal and live fully, even without them. My revenge was freedom. My revenge was joy. My revenge was building a life so rich in peace and self-respect that no amount of money could buy it. And as I sit here telling you my story, I know this. Generosity without boundaries is just sacrifice. Love without respect is just manipulation. I learned the hard way that sometimes the bravest act of love is learning to say no. Moral lesson. Life taught me something I wish I had known sooner. Helping others should never mean destroying yourself. When I gave and gave until I had nothing left, I thought it was love. But love without balance is not love at all. It's control disguised as care. My journey showed me that freedom begins the moment you choose yourself. The moment you decide that your future matters as much as anyone else's comfort. If you're watching this and you feel trapped in the same cycle, whether with family, friends, or a partner, let my story remind you. Your worth is not tied to what you provide. You deserve joy, peace, and respect. Setting boundaries does not make you selfish. It makes you wise. Demanding honesty does not make you cruel. It makes you strong. My family had to lose me to understand my value, but I had to lose them to understand my own. And that balance, that reclamation of self, is where healing lives. So if this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest lesson you learned today?